we have your weekend Apple news. Welcome back to the channel. So if you're new here on the weekend, what do we do? First of all, I'll go through about 20 or 25 different Apple-related stories, so we'll sit back and have some fun. Before I do that, though, I just showcase a beer that I'm drinking here. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. Just want to show you what I'm drinking. You guys can drink your coffee or cappuccino, sit back and relax. Let's get into the Apple news. All right, so what am I drinking here today? I have another beer from Germany. You see, kind of see a system here, right? I love German beers. Germany Purity Law. It's Wolters, Wolters. It's basically a Pilsner. I love German Pilsners. It's from a place called Braunschweig. Never been there before. Been to Germany a bunch of times. Anyways, let me just try this again. I mean, even though it looks a little bit darker, it's just a great Pilsner. So I got this at Binny's. Check it out if you can find it. This is another smooth Pilsner by the German people out there. I love them. So without further ado, let's get into the Apple news. All right, so story number one is actually finally a feel-good story. Let's take a look over here. 9 to 5 Mac. Apple doesn't use your data to train Apple Intelligence. Great news. It says a research paper says that Apple does not use your data to train Apple Intelligence. This differs from OpenAI's policy, which does use ChatGPT sessions to help train its model. So there's a difference there. There's Apple Intelligence. If you just use that, it's not going to be using any of your data to train the model. If you venture out into OpenAI, will it? We'll talk about that. But if you just go to OpenAI yourself without going through Apple and stuff, it will definitely, use some of that data. But better news yet. So down here it says, we do not use users' private personal data or user interactions when training our foundation models. That's coming from Apple, and that's Apple, again, Apple Intelligence models. But it says, note that this policy will also apply to ChatGPT usage when it is handed off from Siri in iOS 18 and macOS 15. So Apple actually has an agreement where they're actually still not going to let them scrape your data, which is great news. So I think Apple's doing this right. I just wanted to kind of go over this story because it's really good news. And I think I feel a little bit better about AI now if I'm going to stay in the Apple environment or even venture out. At least they're protecting us a little bit. All right, story number 2, here's from Apple Insider. It says, Apple offers a first look at upcoming messages via satellite feature. And if you watch the keynote, you'll know that Apple now has this basically satellite feature. So if you're not on a network or something on your phone, you can still send a message basically using a satellite for free basically. That's really good. So down here, if I scroll down a little bit here, it says, Night demonstrates that once your iPhone detects that you don't have cellular service or Wi-Fi service, it'll send you a lock screen alert that prompts the user to connect to the satellite. So it knows that you're not connected. It's going to give you a prompt there. From there, iOS 18 shows the user what services they can do while on satellite mode. This includes sending and receiving messages, updating to Find My Location, requesting roadside assistance, and contacting like the SOS emergency services. That's really cool. So once you select the message, to use the message via satellite, the iPhone will guide. It basically makes you position yourself, so it'll guide you around to get the best position on it, and then you can go ahead and send the message for free. It doesn't even have to be an emergency. It can be for free. And someone with another phone can send you a message also if they have an iPhone. The caveat here, I don't know if I can find it in here, but it says basically, interestingly enough, the rules between iMessage and SMS are a little different. While you can freely send and receive iMessages, you'll need to first initiate conversations that require SMS. So if you're if you want to send basically to someone on Android, you have to initiate it first. But with an iPhone, they can actually send you one through the satellite, which is really crazy. So, I guess this is going to change. They said that this new RCS protocol is coming out soon, and it's going to change maybe with that. But right now, it's limited to, I guess, the Android people where you actually have to initiate it. They can't send you an emergency saying, hey, come back, stuff like that. So just a note, pretty interesting, right? I hope you guys are having a good weekend. And if you haven't tried German beer, I just say give it a shot. It's one of the best beers out there. And once you start drinking it, I never switch from German. I'm going to try to do it more for the show, but anyways, here's a good sale here. Tell me if you think it's right. So here's from Amazon right now. This could be subject to change, obviously. It says Apple 2024. This is the 13-inch base model, 13.6-inch, but the M3 chip on this thing right here. So we got the M3 chip right there. Base model like 8 gigs, 256, but it's down to $899. So obviously what used to be $1099, so it's already $200 off, 18% off. That's pretty amazing, right? M3 chip, the M4s are going to probably come out in maybe a few months, maybe even more than that. So I think $200 off, the kind of their lowest model already is a great deal for the M3. I would recommend 16 gigs, but still a good deal. All right, the next story, just interesting, not that important. 9 to 5 Mac. It says iOS 18 will show you what time it is even when your phone is dead. So this is an interesting article, but I guess they tested it out. If you scroll down here, the phone is completely dead, it says, and then basically it'll show you the time up here. We don't know why. I think they're saying that there might be some kind of an internal battery, like just a little bit of juice that they keep in there so they can keep showing the time. I don't know why that's so useful. Seems like other things might be more useful. Maybe it helps you with like SOS and stuff. I have no idea. But at least if your whole battery dies, you'll still know what time it is based on this article. And you can see it's right here. I mean, I haven't tested it myself, but 9to5 Mac says that's true. Tell me in the comments if you test it once it comes out. Does it hold true? All right, the next one's another cool story. It's actually by Apple Insider. I'm sorry, Apple Insider. It says how to adjust the flashlight's focus and beam shape in iOS 18. You can see it right here. So this is kind of a new feature. It's interesting. So everyone knows they have kind of a light on their phone. We use it to do certain stuff. But if you scroll down here, this new settings here in iOS or iPhone 15 Pro users will see this new flashlight interface at the top of the screen. So it's got to be, I guess, iPhone 15 Pro or maybe the 16's coming up as well. But they're going to have this new icon here. And you can actually move the beam. So like you can see here, this light here shows that it's going to be more spread out. This one's going to be more faint. You can see how it's not, this line is not lit up as much right there. And this one's beam is straight on. So you basically move these little sliders in and you can move the brightness up and it'll focus the beam. So now you can kind of focus the beam of your iPhone. So if you want a very focused beam or a very wide beam, you can actually do that now. Interesting, but obviously it says the iPhone 15 Pro. So I guess you're going to need that at least. And then obviously in phones moving forward, it's probably going to integrate into it eventually. Just something interesting, I think. It looks like Apple somehow did it again. So watch this article over here. It's Apple Insider. It says Apple is paying OpenAI with exposure, not cash. So long story short, you can see this, the title right there. Let me just explain what it is before reading everything. What they're basically saying is Apple kind of told, ChatGPT and OpenAI that, hey, listen, our exposure is enough. We don't need to pay you for anything. We want to still use your services, which is pretty incredible because of all the different things that are hitting their servers. And all Apple users are going to get it for free, basically for free. And then if they want to upgrade, they can later. But I mean, there's not going to be like any signups or anything like that. So, but I think they, OpenAI wants that exposure because of all the millions of users from Apple. So it's kind of like scratching each other's backs. There's no money changing hands, at least according to this is according to a report from Bloomberg. So I can't say it. It says right there in this article right here. But long story short, let me just confirm that. Yeah, right here. Apple isn't paying. It's from Bloomberg right there. Anyways, you get the idea. So I think that's pretty genius, right? I still think that Apple's going to use OpenAI, and they might even bring in like the Google chatbot and stuff temporarily until they get theirs completely ready. And then they're going to just kind of wall them off or put up bigger messages when you try to go off site saying, this is not good, don't do it. I think this is what's going to happen eventually. So I don't know what ChatGPT is going to get out of it because they're not actually even getting that data that's sent to them. So who knows? But we'll find out in the short term. All right, so we have another sale here. I guess I'm going to have a sip with every different sale. There we go. And I was told, don't put my glass down so hard because it hits the microphone. Anyways, over here is Apple AirPods Max wireless over-the-ear headphones right now. They're basically, look at this, 18% off. So they're $449 from $549. Now, me personally, I would never buy these. I'm not a millionaire or a billionaire, and I think buying a headphones for $500 or whatever is crazy. If you want to, though, now is probably the time to do it. Maybe they're going to be coming out with a new model soon. Everyone was thinking they would soon. But overall, I still think it's, I guess it's a pretty good deal, right? You tell me. Again, subject to change when you're watching this. It may be completely gone, but use these prices kind of as the barrier. Don't pay more than this. Wait for them to come back down because next time they'll go a little bit lower. So use this kind of as the price break, and that's all. That's my main advice here. All right, this next article is actually really useful. So obviously, here we go again. We got to have the newest stuff come out first once all these features are ready. But over here from 9to5 Mac, it says, this feature upgrade is the best iPadOS 18 feature of all, and no one even knows about it. So what is this feature? Well, if you can imagine, when you actually save files onto your iPad or folders, a lot of times Apple will move it to the cloud, and then basically, let's say you're on a plane and you need to get those files. Sometimes you don't have any control over what's on the cloud, what's not on the cloud, and then you can't get them back, because you don't have Wi-Fi. You're basically up on a plane or something, and that's bad, right? So there's a new feature in here. Here's the article. I'm going to scroll down here. Basically what it says is if you click on a file and hold it, you're going to get this window right here, and one of them is going to say keep downloaded right here, and you can click on that. So what that'll do is it makes sure it keeps that file or folder completely downloaded on your device. It won't go off to the cloud and only be on the cloud, so it'll always be on your device. It's a new feature built into the iPhone. Again, I don't know what it's coming out on. You have to do your own research if you need the latest and greatest for it. But I'm guessing it's the new ones, obviously, because that's what Apple's doing. But overall, a great feature. Okay, so this next one's kind of a funny article. It says over here, Apple fined in South Korea for collecting users' data without consent. All right, so everyone's kind of scared about this. Why? I just said how good Apple is with security, but they don't even know they don't even know. The article doesn't even know why they're getting this fine. But this fine is so minimal, it's ridiculous for Apple. So down here it says Apple has been ordered by the Korean government commission to pay a fine of 210 million won, but that's only $153,000 for Apple. First of all, that's like exhaust. I mean, that means nothing to them, right? For collecting users' location data without their consent. So they're collecting, it's basically, it looks like it's user location data, all right? So long story short, it goes on to say the action violated a clause or whatever. But then down here it says the same government, Korean government ordered Google to pay a lesser fine. This is the funny one, to the tune of 3 million won, or approximately $2,179 for a similar violation. So they fined Apple $2,000. Apple, can you imagine this? Now, down here it goes on to say that other companies do the same thing, including Samsung, but Samsung got none of the fines and they don't even go after them or anything. Do you think you know why? They're owned by, South Korea, right? Or South Korea is there. So long story short, it's just a funny article. Fining Apple for $2,000 is like fining me for a half of a cent. And I'll keep doing it, right? Not a good fine. Okay, just a quick note here. So Apple Insider, iOS 18 has these quick access text effects to messages. We all heard about this. You can see them here on the screen. There's like big, shake, explode, boom, jitter, all these weird things. I never use these things. I mean, it's more of a hassle to click on them. Long story short, though, I thought, hey, this would be kind of cool, right? There might be hundreds of them. Not the case. So just in case you were wondering that, here they are right here. It's big, small, shake, nod, explode, ripple, boom, jitter. Those are the only ones that are going to be on there. There's not going to be tons and tons you can scroll through. So overall, you're only going to get a couple of them, and you have to kind of select the text, and then it's going to give you the button to add them. I think it's kind of a useless thing. I think people get excited about the stupidest things, but I mean, especially when there's like 8 of them. I mean, so it makes the text a little bigger. I guess in some cases it's okay. I mean, you want to highlight something of it or something. I understand that, but still, I thought there was going to be hundreds of them. There's really 8 of them. So not a big deal to me. We got a lot of sales today. Again, use this as the low point if it's not available when you check. So here it is, Apple AirPods 2nd generation right here, only $79.99 right now, 38% off, usually $129. So this is obviously, kind of the lower model, but still less than $80 for Apple AirPods. 2nd generation is a pretty good deal right now. Definitely pick these up. I don't know how long this says short-term sale right now going on. Apple does this. They just do it for a couple of days, so you have to get in really quickly. I'll have links to all this in the description if you want them, but definitely do your research first. Just a quick note on this next article. So it's from 9to5Mac. It says A17 Pro versus A16 Bionic. So what's the difference? What makes this chip available to do all these transactions and stuff on the iPhone? And why is this chip needed to do Apple Intelligence? Well, long story short, if we scroll down here, it goes through all these different things. But I just want to go in here. So here you can see the A17 Pro versus the A16 Bionic right here. I'm sorry, the A17 Pro versus the A16 Bionic. So the 6-core versus 6-core. GPU, though, gets 1 more core, 6-core versus 5 cores. The neural engine, this is the big difference here. You can see 16 core, but 35 trillion operations per second. So that's the TOC, or top, I believe, TOP. And then 16 core is 17 million. So you got 35 versus 17 million. Plus you get 2 extra gigabytes of RAM here as well. So it's 8 versus 6. And that makes the difference right there. So transistors also go up. And then also this doesn't really matter that much, but 3 nanometer versus 4 nanometer. But you can see the difference here. It's really that 35 million, or trillion, I keep saying million, trillion, big number, operations per second. That makes the difference there. I think Microsoft said that they're up to 40 now, so it's a small difference there. But again, Microsoft also came out with the recall feature, which everyone hates, so we'll see how that goes. Here's a good one. I think this is good for a lot of people that like to finally game on their Macs. It says Game Porting 2 Kit is coming to the Mac right now. So in that kind of presentation, if you look at this picture, they had a whole bunch of new games coming out to the Mac. And that's really good news, right? And it says basically, let me just see here, let me just scroll down to here. It says Assassin's Creed Shadows is coming. So that's going to be one of the big games. It's coming in November, it looks like. And November 15th, it says. So Ubisoft now is working with Apple directly. And they're basically going to come out with Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is kind of a flagship game, right? But then they went on to say a whole bunch of other games are coming out soon. And I'll show you the list right here. So Dead Island 2, Frostpunk 2, Paul World, I'm not going to go through all of them. Prince of Persia, Resident Evil 2, Riven. All these different games. So World of Warcraft, The War Within. A lot of games that people like to play, I guess. Obviously, if you're a gamer, hardcore gamer, PC's better, Windows PC's better. But we're getting there. We're slowly getting there. All right, this next one, let me explain what this is. You tell me how important this is to you. I don't get it, but maybe it is for some people. It says iOS 18 finally adds T9 dialing on iPhone. So what in the world is T9 dialing? It says, for instance, down here, to call John, you'd press 564 or JON. So, or JOH, I'm sorry. So basically what you do is, if you have a bunch of contacts, you just start typing the first 3 letters of their name, and then Apple will give you a quick list, and you click on it, and then it dials it. So, for instance, Craig, C-R-A, you hit it on the number thing, and it'll come up with my number, and then you can call it. So, kind of interesting. It's called T9 dialing. But I mean, we have a whole contact list, everything else. So I'm just guessing, like, are you going to ever use this? I mean, I guess if I remember it's there in a pinch, I might use it or something. But it's just really weird. But still, I guess Android had this for a while, and now Apple has it too. All right, this next one is just kind of an interesting article. It's about the iPad. So look over here. It says iPadOS 17 adoption rate reaches 77%, but still slower than iOS 16. So without getting into all the details, let's look down here. So here's the statistics. Here's iPhones. So it looks like basically iOS 17, 86% are running, iOS 16, 11%, and then older versions, 3%. But these are iPhones in the last 4 years. All iPhones, obviously, you can see the percentages here. It gets a little lower on all of them. iPads here, and the ones that were purchased in the last 4 years, 86% are running iPadOS 17, and then 16 is 15%, and then 8%. But on all iPads, which means not in the last 4 years, you can see it's a lot lower. 68% are running iOS 17. So obviously that makes sense because some of them might not even be able to upgrade, Obviously, if they're too old, they can't even upgrade to the newest version. So interesting stuff here. Just interesting, I thought, if you like Apple and stuff. So I just threw it in there. All right, this is kind of good news too. So over here at Apple Insider, Apple's core calendar and reminders app can finally talk to each other in iOS 18. So long story short, it says basically if you go into the calendar app finally and you double click on something, you actually can then go in and create reminders for it. So they're actually talking to each other, which is really good finally. The reminders app will still stay in there, but overall, they're finally able to communicate together in iOS 18. And it's something we've been waiting for a while. It just makes sense, right? All right, so for this next one, I'm going to kind of deviate from what the actual article means, but you'll get the idea in a second. Apple Insider, it says how to lock apps, hide apps, and find them again in iOS 18 here. So long story short, there's a feature now where you can hide an app or lock an app or completely hide it so it doesn't show up. And it's basically going to be built into iOS 18. So, but I want to take away, I'm not going to talk too much about this article, not exactly how to do it because you'll figure that out eventually. I want to talk about, a lot of people think, and I've heard this on a lot of different channels, like people are thinking like, oh my God, people are going to hide Tinder and different weird things like that from their spouse, right? That's what comes to mind right away. You can hide your app. But no, I think the best use of this is, and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, there's things going on in Chicago where a bunch of kids will run up at gunpoint and steal your phone and then basically hold and say, open your banking app. They'll actually then transfer money from from your account to somewhere else and steal all your money. So now you can actually go in here and hide all your financial apps, and these boneheads can't find them. And long story short, you're a lot safer now. So that's my main use of this, and I think it's going to be great because I actually do use a Google phone as well. Hopefully they'll have an option like that, and they maybe already do. I maybe need to check into it. I don't know if you can hear the cicadas out there, but they're really loud. So if you hear them, I apologize. Anyways, I think this is a great feature for sure, even though it's a really small one. All right, this next article, and this is a word that's going to come up, so I wanted to introduce it to you. It's AI Apple Insider here. It says Sherlock by Sequoia. What apps Apple may have killed off in macOS and iOS 18, right? So Sherlock, that means basically if you create something so good that you basically kill off or make everything else, not even used anymore. I guess that's not the right way to say it, but it makes everything else insignificant, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So long story short, that's what you say when you Sherlock something. You basically are the number one, you get rid of all the other competitors, basically. So here it is. If I scroll down here, it's saying, Grammarly, basically. So Apple, all the people that use Grammarly now can use Apple as far as proofreading, rewriting all their stuff, helping them write different kind of, ways it's going to sound and stuff. So is that true? You think they'll actually go away? They could lose a lot of money because a lot of people in the United States use, obviously Apple devices. That's one of them. Keep scrolling down here. Password managers. It says Dashline, 1Password, LastPass. Those could possibly be hit as well here because now Apple definitely has the password feature where you can actually go in and obviously do all your passwords. So obviously that's another thing that Apple kind of learned on, and they created their own app. And we don't know if it's going to completely take away from everybody else, but it very well could. And then a couple ones that I don't think are really that that useful. It says Windows managers. I looked at like Luke Manani, and he basically went in and tried the Windows manager. He said it doesn't work that well yet. Apple's still trying to figure out. It's kind of in beta. So we'll see how good that is, because I know there's a lot of good ones, like it says Moom or Mosaic or Better Snap Tool. There's a whole bunch of good ones that you can get that are probably going to be better than Apple's initially, at least. So we'll see if that happens. The calculators down here, that could be a big hit, because now Apple's got the calculator, plus it's also got the way you can draw. So it might take out some of those competing calculators out there that are out there, possibly. And then it says calendars and task managers, and then finally it says AI and ChatGPT. That's the one I don't think it's going to take out right away. I think eventually, though, AI and ChatGPT, it's going to slowly, use them as much as they can, and then rip the rug from them and wall off their environment as best they can, within the law. I think they're going to have like barriers set up saying if you go out there, it's very dangerous. If you stay in here, it's very safe. They can't really do it all right now, but I think eventually that's how they're going to position it. So you stay inside of Apple. So I think they could kind of Sherlock them, but maybe to only Apple users. We'll have to see. All right, this next one's not a feel-good article, and I don't want to get sued, so I'm just reading this from the website. 9to5Mac, it says, Sonos new privacy policy implies the company now sells your data. So if you use Sonos for like your music and your earphones or whatever, just be aware. So I read this down here. There's a guy called Louis Rossmann. He's pretty funny. He's on YouTube. Definitely check out that channel. He always goes after these big companies. He takes all the big hits and the lawsuits and stuff. But it says there's a former privacy policy from Sonos. It says Sonos does not and will not sell personal information about our customers. However, certain data practices described throughout the privacy statement may constitute a sale or sharing of the. So basically, it says they will not sell or share. It says right here. Now they changed it down here. It says now they updated the policy, and it says certain data practices described throughout the privacy statement may constitute a sale or sharing of the data under California or other U.S. state laws. So it went from we will not to we possibly could, and Louis Rossmann caught that. So I guess there's some. Obviously, this is kind of like the Adobe thing going on right now, where they're kind of all the lawyers are huddled together saying, how do we get out of this? How do we get out of this? And eventually they're going to try to figure some kind of statement out. I'm not saying it. This guy's saying it, or whoever this, Ryan here is from 9to5Mac. And then Louis Rossmann, obviously, he's just reporting on him. But I think this is something, if you use it, you just want to make sure you hold these people accountable so we can be more protected. All right, so I mean, again, Apple's brilliant at like making features that should have been on their phones and their computers and stuff, making it into a big deal when they should have been on there for 20 years, but who knows. So here's an article by 9to5Mac. It says, forget how to turn off your iPhone. iOS 18 now offers a dedicated power button. So obviously, iOS 18 now has a power button. So before, long story short, is on some of the new phones, you have to hold down the power button and then hold like the volume at the same time. I guess a lot of older people don't know how to do that. They can't figure it out, how to turn their phones off now. But long story short, it says new power button added to the control center. So basically you can see this picture here. So in the control center, there will actually be a power button. You click on it and then it moves this. It shows you a slider where you can power off the device. Pretty good, right? I guess it's in there finally. I don't know why they didn't have it in there before, like I said, and now it's called a feature. Okay, for this next one, I got to take a quick sip here because this kind of upsets me a little bit. And that's good too. So over here it says Apple Insider. Apple honors original icon designer Susan Kerr and macOS Sequoia wallpaper. So you look at this wallpaper, I can't even tell what it is. I know they only had 32 by 32 pixels. This is an original icon. You tell me, it looks like a computer with an Apple over there. But still, it looks like a 3-year-old put this together. So that's my take on it. And they're honoring her for this. Obviously she just threw it together when Apple was first starting out. She didn't think much of it. Now she's getting honored for it. This is like honoring, those people that just splash paint on a painting, or a horse that steps on a painting and it becomes something. I think that's kind of what this is, right? I could have done better than that even with 32 by 32. Could you? You tell me. 2 in a row, because now we got this thing going. So we got a new Apple. This is actually a pretty good deal, though. This is on Amazon, again, subject to change. $11.29 though, 30% off right now. This is the Apple MacBook Air, but this is the 15-inch right now. M3, 15 inches. It's the base model, 8 gigs, 256 here. Total base model, but still, $12.99 down to $11.29. So what is like $170 off. The 15-inch M3 now, starting to get, this is, I think, the best price I've seen on it so far. Limited time deal, so it might be gone. But just use this as your price barrier now and don't spend any more than that. All right, so the last one here, and then I'll wrap it up, is kind of gross, so you may want to look away. It's not really, before I even show it to you, it's only a lion's tongue, all right? Just be careful. Apple Insider. As it turns out, Apple Watch heart rate monitoring can be used on lions too. Take a look at this picture. So long story short, in the field, what they're doing is if they have to, put a lion down to kind of do some work on it, like out in the safari, basically, they attach this watch to the tongue, and it can actually monitor the, while it's under anesthesia, it can monitor its heart rate and stuff on the tongue of it. I don't know if I'd want that watch back, but hopefully it'll be washed pretty good. But there is the picture. I just wanted to warn you what it was before going in. It's just kind of a funny story, right? It's kind of going to wrap up our Friday Apple news. So long story short, I hope everyone basically can subscribe to the channel. We're going to try to grow this Apple news here on the weekends. I have some special ways maybe of people sending me comments, maybe through a super chat or a super thanks or something, a small one, and then basically in the next episode, I'll actually put those comments in and then try to answer them and stuff. We'll talk about how to do this maybe in the next episode or the one after that. But I want to try to get some interaction here and how to get people to get, so I can, kind of put up their comment and stuff like that and then talk about it and then eventually go live with everything. Subscribe to my channel, though. This is not all I do. I do tons of reviews on a ton of tech. Check out I have tons of tech, SSDs, and you name it, everything else. Apple is my main thing. I do some other stuff as well. Apple's usually it, though. And we'll talk to everybody in the next one. Peace.